No, like he goes multiple times a day because back when we were at Oz, we'd be there all day. You just see him going with this pit, just going through multiple times.
I love riding it with her. It gets her, wears her out really well.
Oh yeah. So for today, hey Bree,
Sweetie.
we're gonna be in the puppy room, and then we can call her up Cash because he's acting up a little bit. We'll work on something easy today. This can be done inside the home.
Okay, great.
This is what we call stationary work, meant for like extended control. So in dog training, there's like what I call the trifecta of commands. You have the walk with me, then you have the come to me, and then there's a don't move. Okay, and that's like the simplest way to like break it down. Okay, so there's
Come with me, don't move, and
walk with me, come to me, and don't move.
walk.
Yeah, to put it simply. Walk with me, of course, be heel. Come to me is, of course, come. And stationary, you technically have three options. We have sit, down, and place. I always start with place because it's like the simplest thing for people to learn. And then, because there's 6 traditional commands: heel, come, sit, down, place, stay. Those are like the 6 like family pet commands. So like if someone does like a shorter program, I just prioritize like the heel and the recall or come and call because like those are the 2 most important, and then everything else is kind of superficial. Otherwise, when they do longer programs, then I try to get them, of course, this kind of control. This is what would allow you to, like, let's say you go to a restaurant patio, you want to bring Sweetie with you and not worry about like her being all over the place, things like that.
Absolutely.
This would help you there, and we'll cover the other ones as well, so you have more than one option. But we start with this one just because it makes teaching her to sit still much easier. So the place command, so like right here we have an elevated dog bed, is meant for extended control. So like let's say if you go to a restaurant patio with her, you might be there for anywhere between an hour and a half, right?
Right.
This allows you to have her under control for that period of time, and it's more lenient than like the sit or down command. So like if I'm gonna sit down and eat for a bit, I wouldn't use the sit command because it's not really realistic for a dog to sit that long, in my opinion. If anything, I would use the down command. But the difference between the sit down and place is sit and down are very specific. Put your butt down or lay down, right? There's no in between. With the place command, it's lenient. It's more so like just go here and then don't move. So there's like a perimeter, okay? So within this perimeter, Sweetie can sit, stand, lay down, chew on a bone, play with a toy. She just cannot step off the perimeter of the placemat, okay? So this makes it much easier. So if you go to a restaurant, you're not worried about keeping her in a very strict position like the down, because then if she sits up or stands up, you have to correct that. With this, as long as she's within that perimeter, it's easy. You don't have to do anything. But as soon as we see her trying to step off of the object, that's when we would actually correct her. Okay? Question so far?
No.
What's her number currently?
45.
45. And if you'd like now, you can trim down your strap. If you do decide to trim it, I always suggest that you round it, because people will cut it straight across.
Okay.
And it leaves a
Sharp edge.
Yeah. And leave yourself some to work with. Like I would cut it past where the circle ring is.
So like right about here, this line right here.
Yeah, a little bit further down, just to give
Okay.
you some wiggle room. Because I had a client once like cut it like all the way by the.
Left himself no room.
Yeah, and then they're constantly like trying to pull it. I mean, they're replaceable, but yeah, I always give a little bit of wiggle room just in case. But you can trim it, and then I would just suggest rounding it out so you don't end up with any sharp edges. Okay. So what we're gonna do here first. What's your number?
45.
45. Let's go down to 25. Whenever we teach anything new, we always go down low. And what I'm gonna have you start with is you're gonna be moving around with Sweetie here, and you're gonna stop. Like let's say you're walking with her, you're not heeled over, butt heel or anything like that, just like casually walking, and you come to a stop. In the beginning, you might need to brace the bed with your foot, because sometimes the dogs will resist going on an object they don't they're not familiar, and you'll see her start to push, and it'll push the bed away. So you can help anchor it with your foot. And I grab the leash, I shorten it, I grab closer up by the collar, give me more leverage. You're gonna start tapping, and as you're tapping, you're gonna pull towards the placemat. Now, if we get quite a bit of resistance, or she's just like not budging, Then we're gonna start to increase the power
Okay.
until we find a number that motivates her to actually move on to it, okay? We're not gonna worry about staying place, up, or anything like that. We just wanna teach Sweetie that when she feels the e-collar, it means for her to go to the bed itself, okay? Because for the past couple weeks, e-collars meant, you're walking my side, put your butt down when I stop, or come over here, and now we're teaching her that it means to move to something, okay? Questions? So I'm gonna have you go ahead and walk around a little bit. And when you're ready, you'll come to a stop, about a foot away from the bed. That's good. Now you're gonna go to shorten your leash. There we go. And you're gonna start tapping and pulling towards the placemat. Tap, 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 tap. There she goes. Good. And praise. Good girl.
Good girl.
Good. So you can see there's a little bit of resistance there, right? Now, as we do this, you might find you're gonna come to a stop and she's going to prematurely jump onto the bed. If she does, I'm gonna have you just back away and pull her off and represent her to the mat itself, because she's gonna start getting savvy to the exercise of like, oh, you're just gonna tap me and I'm gonna have to go there. So she's gonna jump and beat the punch.
Gotcha.
And we want her to go, of course, when we cue her to. Okay, so that was a good one. We're gonna go and say break.
Break.
Good, we're gonna do 4 more just like that. Yep, 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 yep. Try to choke it up a little bit. Yep, 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 yep. There she goes. Good. And up, yep. Right, and brace.
Good girl.
Good.
Good girl.
Let's try going down to, you're at 25, right?
Yep.
15, let's try 15. Good girl.
Come on, sweetie. Break. Good girl.
There we go. Good.
Good girl. Good girl.
Yeah, girl. Do 2
Good
more.
girl. Break.
Good. There we go. Good.
Good girl.
Praise.
Good
Nice
girl. Good girl.
Good.
Break.
Last one.
Good girl.
So what we're gonna do now, we're gonna do another batch of 5.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that's just gonna step up. But this time, you're gonna tap first. Okay, you're gonna do about 2 to 3 taps.
Uh-huh.
If we don't see her respond, you're gonna keep tapping and then you're gonna pull.
Gotcha.
Okay, so you'll still have it short, and we're gonna see if with the tapping by itself, if she'll start to walk there on her own. Otherwise, by that 3rd tap, you can start to use leash pressure. Good, now start to pull a bit more. Yep, there we go.
Good girl. Good girl.
Break.
Break.
Good, we'll do this one more time. Now pull, tap, tap.
Good girl. Good girl. Break. Go.
Right, like that was
Good
good.
girl.
That was a good one. Praise that.
Good girl. There you go. Break. Go.
A little pressure. There she goes.
There you go.
And a girl, good job.
There you go. You can tell she's trying to get it like.
Yeah, she's thinking about it, yeah. Because she got the last one.
Yeah, you good girl. Break.
We'll do one more. Yeah, so I'm going to pull her off. Because you didn't tap yet, right?
Nope.
Okay, can we just wait a moment? Yeah, that's fine. And then when you're ready. Yep. Now we'll go. There you go.
Good girl. Good girl.
So right now she's trying to figure out, because like she jumped there on her own, right? So she's learning. But since you pulled her off, then she ends up thinking like, oh, maybe I'm not supposed to.
Mhm.
So then when you try to click the center again, there's like a little bit of conflict there. That's normal. So what we're gonna do now, same process, except now you're gonna start sending her from different angles.
Okay.
Okay, so before you're just consistently from this side, and what you're gonna do is, you know, you might stop on that side, this side, you know, just angle it out. You're gonna do same distance, same pattern of tapping first, then leash pressure, but just changing up where from.
Okay.
We're gonna do a batch of those. We're gonna slowly start making it more difficult, and then we're gonna add in the word.
Break. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. Break.
Good.
Break. Break.
You got it, girl. Good job. Good. Let's bump her to 20. Forgot to do that last minute.
Good girl. Good girl. Break.
Right. Good. There we go. That was good. That was good. That was just one tap, right?
One tap.
Good. Very good.
Good girl. Good girl.
Good. Two more.
Break. Break. Okay, break.
Right. Very good.
Good girl.
Good girl.
Hey, good girl.
Do one more.
Break. Break.
There you go. Good girl.
That.
Good girl. Right. There you go.
Good girl. Good girl.
Good. So now we're gonna do another batch of 5, but now you're gonna go back about 2 to 3 feet. Okay, so like right now we're about a foot away, so it makes it easier to like find that place. So you're gonna be about 2 to 3 feet back. Same thing if she tries to prematurely go, you're gonna, you know, pull her back, wait a moment. If you need to move forward to help her, like I wouldn't walk her there, you would just like step out and then slowly just like kind of stretch out, correct.
Different angles.
Different angles, yep.
Break. So like say for like here.
Yeah, that's good. Yep. There you go. Good. Add a girl.
Good girl.
There you go. Yep, like that. Perfect. Good.
Good girl.
So you see on that one how she had trouble,
Mhm.
whereas this one was like straight, right, in the last few.
Mhm.
That's why we're doing the different angles now, because if you always scent from one particular direction, like I've seen dogs where like if you always scent, for instance, that way coming this way, and then one day you scent her this way, you'd see her walk around and come in the other way, because that's how she's so used to practicing it. And I want to teach the dog to generalize and not get so set on the habit, and that's why we start doing from different angles, so they start recognizing the object itself and not so much the habit or the pattern. Okay, we'll do 3 more.
Break. Good girl.
There you go, good job.
Good job. Good girl. Way to go. Way to go. Yeah. Break.
Good, 2 more. Right, there she goes, add a girl, good job. Good girl.
Good girl. Way to go.
We're gonna do 1 more. Now when you do this next one, you're gonna, send her, and then once she's there, keep the leash in your hand and you can have the seat.
Okay. Break.
Very good.
Good girl. Good girl.
Good. Excellent. So there's 2 aspects to this. Right now you're teaching what we call the send. Okay, teaching her to leave from your side to an object. Okay, and then we have the don't move aspect. The send, everybody's application is going to be different. Most common people just want to be able to send the dog from about 4 to 6 feet away. That's like pretty standard. Every now and then, like I've only had a couple of people. I know one person in particular wants to be able to send their dog from anywhere within the home, and so he had just one particular object that he labeled as place, and he never moved it to make it easier for the dog. And you can send the dog from like anywhere within the home, different rooms, upstairs, all that stuff. And the dog knew to go to this particular spot. Okay. Most people just care to be able to send their dog and then they don't move. Okay. Now, if you're thinking like, no, I would like to be able to send her from like a longer distance or from different rooms, what you do is you just start to slowly move backwards. Okay. So in the beginning, we were right there next to the object. You were helping her. Did a few reps of that to build a concept of like, oh, tap means if I go here, it goes away. And then we started making it more difficult by tapping first, trying to get her to relate this means to go, and then increasing the distance. So, however far back you want to be able to send her, like let's say you did want to send her from a different room, like you'd be 2 to 3 feet. Once she masters that, 4 to 5 feet, 7 to 8 feet, 8 to 10 feet, and then you start going to different rooms and just helping her and sending her. So you're moving backwards, and if you ever found that she got stuck at a certain distance, you just move closer in and then practice that some more and then try to move back out again, okay? So the place command doesn't need to be anything fancy. We have elevated dog beds here, but you can use a towel, a blanket, a kitchen mat, a dog bed, an ottoman. I had a person use a really big area rug once. So remember, place is just go here, and I don't care what you do, just don't step out of the perimeter. So in the case of the area rug, they're like, can this be place? I said, yeah. I'm like, it's just a really big place. It's like, so your dog can actually like walk around and like even run laps, technically, right? As long as they stay within the perimeter. So it's kind of like a go to your room for a kid, right? I don't care what you do in your room, just go in there, right? So same kind of concept here. And we just need something that defines a perimeter. So like I couldn't point to the corner and say place, because where's the place end? Where's the boundary there, right? We need something that either is a difference in texture or just has some kind of outline. so she's able to recognize like, oh, I don't want to step over this particular line, okay? We also want to watch mental states. Like right now, she's laying on there, she's got her head over the placemat, which is perfectly fine because she's in a relaxed state. But like my Pit, when she was a puppy, I would see her like this, right? And she'd be sitting there and you could just tell like she's like, I don't want to be here, right? And then little by little you just see
See where the line is and how far.
Yeah, right. I remember there was one time, right, I left the room for like 10 to 15 minutes to make a sandwich or something. And when I came back, she was sprawled off of the placemat with her toe, like literally her foot just touching the object. And she was just like this. Yeah, like, so she was aware that she had to do something with it, right? So obviously we corrected that, and you know that doesn't fly. They have to be, all fours have to be within the perimeter, okay? So if you see her like go to lay down somewhere because you placed her, you know, just keep an eye on that mental state. This is fine, right? If she's a little bit off because she just happens to be laying in that fashion, but then you want to watch for like if she's really just like playing a game as well, okay? So the moment you would notice her thinking like, oh, I'm gonna try to sneak off of here, that's when you would tap. I wouldn't wait till it's like she's considerably off, okay? As soon as you see the thought process, you correct there. What I would expect to see is that she retracts and places herself back on, okay? When we send dogs to place, we don't say stay. Stay is gonna be implied once we start incorporating the word. I don't say, you know, place and then sit or place and then down, because remember, place is lenient. Go here, I don't care what you do. Sit down, lay down, stand up, twirl around, whatever, just don't step off, right? But if you place her and then you were to say down, for instance, it's no longer a place command, it's a down command. But now she's downing on a placemat, right? So what happens is a lot of people forget and they'll place their dog, then they'll down them. 30 minutes later, the dog's standing up, but the owner thinks, oh, the dog's on place. But no, the dog's on the down. But they did it on the place area. Okay, so your new command overrides your old command. So technically, if I said down, after placing her, she should stay in that position. There is no sitting, there is no standing, there's no gray area there, okay? So the place command has a little bit of gray area because we don't care what she does, we just care that she stays within the perimeter, okay? So that's something I suggest to people is like, you know, once we get to those commands that we don't employ them with the place command, because this is meant to be lenient, go here, don't move, okay? If you do down her on the place, you just have to remember, if she sits or stands up, you have to correct her back into the down position.
Okay, before letting her go.
Correct. We don't have to say stay because stay is of course implied. So like when we started saying the stay right from the heel position, the reason why we say stay there is because she's not in a sit, she's in a heel, right? So if you were to move again, her inclination would be I move with you. So we use the stay there because human logic says I can't tell you to sit, you're already doing it. Can't tell her to down, so you haven't taught her down yet. So instead we just said stay, and now that means you don't move when I move, okay? So like let's say Sweetie were to be like, she lays down on her dog bed by herself. It's her decision. She can get off when she wants, right? However, let's say she's on her dog bed and then you decide, you know what, I need you to not move, stay. Now it would become a place command. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Then you have to correct her so she knows what's expected.
Correct. Because you technically can't say place because she's already there. And I know another client told me that like her trainer used to have her remove the dog and then send them, which technically is an approach, right? Because the dog, when you like has to
It's the correct approach so the dog understands what's what.
Correct, right? Because the dog's not just going to understand like, oh,
It's not going to understand nuances.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's where I use the stay command myself if the dog's already there. So if the dog is already in a sit, like in the heel, stay, right? If the dog is already laying down and I decide I need you to not move and they know the down command, stay, then it becomes the down command. Or in this case, if she's on her bed, stay, and then it becomes the place command, right? But you have to have taught the command first in order for the dog to understand that. So if I told her stay, and then 20 minutes later she tries to like step off and I tap her, she's gonna think, boom, and go right back onto it again.
Now, am I only going to be using the like tap, like to correct her, or to like initiate these? Like, is she gonna know like what tap means come and what tap means place.
Okay, so the way dogs interpret with the tappings is one, do the verbal cue, right? So like we say heel, we've said stay, and we've said come,
Okay.
right? And today we're gonna cover place, so then that's gonna give you 4 verbal commands or verbal cues. So when Sweetie sees her dog bed, let's say it's in the living room, right? And without any words, let's say you had taught her what to do and you tapped her, her assumption is gonna be, we're in the room, and in this room, it's almost always, you send me the place, you're gonna see her gravitate to that,
Gotcha.
okay? If you're to be out with Sweetie and she's off leash, and she's running around, and you're 30 feet away, and you tap her, she's probably gonna think recall, because that's what come is, right? She's not gonna think heel, unless you're walking away from her with your left side facing her, then she might think heel. But if you're just facing her and you tap her, most likely you're gonna see her just move in towards you, because she's gonna assume, oh, that was for a recall. If you have Sweetie on a short leash, and like let's say you're just meandering and you tapped her, she'd most likely gravitate to your side because she's thinking in this situation it's typically heel. So the way a dog interprets the tap is contingent on what does life look like at the moment, because everything looks specific to a dog. So when she's in heel with you, if this is your leg, right, and you're walking, and like let's say she starts to slow down, and you're here now life looks different because your leg is here. So if you tapped her, she's gonna think, that's not right. The leg should be here. Okay? So then if she's 30 feet away from you and she's like over here, and you tap her, and she goes, oh, Dad's 30 feet away, most likely this is what I'm supposed to do. Okay? But we use the verbal cues, of course, so that it's more clear to the dog. But technically, a lot of these things are default responses that they've just learned within the context of what life looks like in that moment. Okay? Other questions? I'm sure you're sleeping. So with the place command, which is fine.
Yeah.
Which is fine. For the place command, there's really no limit to the length of time. Okay? I had a couple where we did a board and train with their dog for like 3 weeks, and we pushed the dog like 4 to 5 hours. And the reason why we did that was because they just had a baby.
Okay.
And I was like, I know, I've worked with a lot of families with babies and dogs, and they're so busy with the baby, or the dog is just so much like what's going on with the baby and just wanting to be in that context, that I was like, you're gonna need really long control. So like the dog would be on the bed and the baby would be crawling, playing, tummy time with mom, like all that stuff going on, and the dog's not gonna move. So it makes it easier for them, because they're like, well, I don't have to worry about where's my dog and the baby, because now I know the dog's not gonna move, all I gotta do is worry about my baby, okay? So most people, it's usually between an hour to 2 hours, because most of my clients typically use this command for 1, they go out to eat or something, or 2, when they have guests come over. So like let's say, you have family or friends over, and Sweetie's very sweet and she's very social with them, but then maybe trying to have dinner and she's just like walking around everybody and they don't like it, right? This is an option for you, or it's like, you know what, we need to keep you still, go over here and don't move while everybody's like eating their dinner or whatever. And then once everybody's done, you can release her and then she's back free to like roam around and all that stuff, okay? So what I do in the beginning is I don't do short increments. Like I don't do 5 minutes and then 10 minutes and then 15 minutes. Like day 1, we do 2 to 3 hours. Yeah. So in that backspace now we have those columns, those pink and purple columns. So next to some of them you've seen like the dog beds.
Mm-hmm.
And on those columns we have tethers, we have leashes, okay? And we'll literally, like if we have a daycare train or a board and train, we'll work with the dog, teach them place, and then that very day, the first day they learn it, we go and we take them to the column, we place them, and then we clip them to a tether. And they have just enough space to get off of the place.
But not be comfortable.
But they can't get away, correct, right? So then like let's say they sneak off and we're training another dog, we have the remote, we start tapping, and then the dog has to correct themselves without actually needing us, okay? So it's like a cheat to the system where we can do extended time frames and not worry about the dog getting away because they're tethered to the column, correct? So, and that's how we're able to push for a really long period of time efficiently, because we're not constantly having to walk the dog back, okay? For the average family owner, what I will tell them to do is, unless they have something like that, so like some of my clients back in the summer had those like old radiators that are built into like the building. So that since they're not on, there's just, there's no heat coming from them. I was like, you can use it as a tether. Put the dog bed next to the radiator, put a leash, wrap it around the radiator, clip it to the dog, and now the dog has space to get off, but can't get anywhere, so you can correct them while they're across the house cleaning or whatever. Okay, so then the dog learns like, oh, like you have nothing to do with this. If I step off, I'm gonna have to correct myself and go back without needing you to like walk me back. Okay. If you don't have anything like that, you can use. I've had people use like their couches. They have like a wooden table, very heavy and sturdy. They use those as well. Anything that can anchor her essentially. Okay. And then like you would give her the full length of the leash. You would just like, let's say you put the like table leg through your handle, and then the bed right next to the table leg, so that she has space to actually get off to make mistakes, but can't get very far. The other option is in the beginning. Let's say you're gonna watch, a movie. You take her dog bed or whatever object it is that you're gonna use, and you set it right next to you, like by the couch. She's set up, leash, e-collar, sweetie place. You send her, and then you just watch a movie. 45 minutes in, she starts to get up. She tries to sneak away. We don't say anything. We just start tapping. She walks back. 30 minutes later, she tries to sneak away again. Tap, tap. She goes back, right? Because I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm going to be watching TV for the next hour and a half, 2 hours, or whatever, if I'm watching a movie or something. So while you're not doing anything, you're actually doing this. So like right now, I was like, send her the place because I'm going to talk to you for a bit. So now we're switching from the send exercise to the don't move exercise.
Gotcha.
Okay. So if you're working from home, if you're going to watch TV as you eat dinner,
That'd be great because she follows me everywhere.
sure, yeah.
So that'll be interesting to get her to stay.
Yeah, and so for the first week, let's say she's on place and you need to get up to like get something. For the first week, you would actually release her first, sweetie break, then get up and do what you're gonna do. Okay, and then you can come back and you can send her back again.
Okay.
But the reason why we do that in the beginning is because I know if you try to get up and leave, it's going to be a bunch of corrections. Okay, so we make life easier in the beginning, and the reason why we release first is if you stand up and then release her.
Right. No, that makes complete sense because then she knows she has to wait to be released in order to
Correct.
come up and
Yeah, because if you stand up and then release her, she's going to pick up that pattern,
Yeah.
and she's going to think every time you stand up, I get to go. So we flip it so we avoid that problem. The second week, we do place, and then you can get up, still next to you, get up, walk away, and then come back, because if you need to correct her, it's going to be much easier now, because she's already done it for a week. The third week, sweetie can be like 4 to 6 feet away from you. Same concept, you can get up and all that stuff. The fourth week, she could be across the room, or wherever the place would normally be, and you're getting up, walking around, cleaning, whatever, and she's just there. And then all this is still on a leash. And then by the 5th week, we move past the leash, okay? The reason why we use the leash in the beginning is, like what you mentioned earlier with the stay, when you tapped her to go back into position and she started to move away, is because without the leash in your hand, her brain sees that she has more opportunities. Now she's like, oh, I can actually run away from you right now because there's nothing tethering you to me, right? So a lot of people in the beginning, they want to skip ahead. They remove the leash too soon, and then when they try to correct the dog runs off, and then they're chasing the dog around the house to get them to go back to place. So in the beginning, you can leave it on the floor too. It just gives you something in case you needed to step on or whatever, and give her a little bit of guidance to help her back to the area itself. Okay, and you don't have to do like 2 hours every day. Like you can do 30 minutes one day, 10 minutes the next day, 2 hours the next day, an hour the next day, 15 minutes the next day. You can vary it. But I do suggest that if I would like to, either take her to work with me, or I'd like her to take her to a restaurant, and she'd have to be able to sit still for like X period of time, you want to practice around that range plus a little more. So like, let's say, it's an hour and a half at brunch or something, I would do at least an hour and a half, up to 2.5 hours on here, because you're trying to compensate. Because at the restaurant, there's going to be the waiters, waitresses, possibly other dogs, food, smells, people cooing at her, like all these things going on that in the home that you don't have going on. So then you can make it more complicate or you can make it more difficult for her by extending the length of time. Okay, to kind of compensate for the fact that you're not going to have all those things going on. So that when you do go to that restaurant, she's already done 2.5 hours, that an hour and a half there isn't going to be a problem. Okay? Questions? Oh, some of my clients in their car will keep like a towel or something. So like they'll have, yeah, you know, like they'll keep a towel or a blanket or a kitchen mat, whatever. I had a lady that used to carry a yoga mat for her dog.
I have a dog bed in my backseat.
Sure, yeah, you can use that, yeah. So that if you go somewhere, you just bring that out and plop it down and go place, right? And that becomes her like travel object, you know, if you will. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Most people use dog beds and stuff, but like I had a class that I did at Oz Park and I forgot my placemat and I just used my jacket. I just took off my Carhartt and I plopped it down and then it became place for that lesson. Because the dog doesn't care, the dog just goes, oh, I just need, there's this object that has a perimeter, okay? You can have more than one place within the home. Like you could have one in the kitchen, one in the dining room, one in the living room, one in the bedroom. You could have one that you just move around each room depending on where you're gonna be. Or you can have one centralized place in a specific room where you want it, that you can send her from any room, you know? And if you did that, like you want to keep it consistent, you could move it around. You just I wouldn't move around every other day because then she's gonna get lost. But if you kept it in the same spot, that's how you get to the area of like being able to send it from any room because she just recognizes it's right here. Okay. Questions? So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna go and start adding in the verbal cue.
Okay.
So you're gonna repeat that same process where you're gonna walk around and stop about 2 to 3 feet away. But now you're gonna cue the word place first, then you're gonna start tapping, and then if she doesn't move within 2 to 3 taps, you're gonna keep tapping, and then use the leash pressure.
Okay.
Break.
Good girl. Oh, shit.
Oh, it's okay. You give the tap first.
Place.
And a girl.
Good girl. Yeah, good girl.
Break. Break.
Place.
There she goes, add a girl.
Good
Good job.
girl. This is a good girl.
Break.
Place.
Good girl.
Good girl. Yeah. Good girl. Break. Place.
Good. I'm gonna do one more.
Good girl. And she's trying to.
Get there, yeah.
Yeah, break. Place.
Very good. Good, and we'll leave her there. You can pet her and have a seat. Very good. Tap, 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 yep. Good. Excellent, yep, and that's exactly how you would correct it. So first you jump to tapping. Ideally, she would have just backtracked.
They got to correct herself.
Correct. But then she didn't get after a couple of taps that you used some leash tension, but you didn't repeat. So that's all correct. So It's a tiny little detail, but it means a lot.
Don't say place, because then she'll wait to hear, she'll wait for the verbal cue constantly.
Correct, yeah. Then you just end up resetting every time. She doesn't learn like not to move in the first place. So we always just jump to the corrections, and then ultimately over time you'll find like you can send her and then she doesn't move for the next period, like 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever. So when you get home, don't expect that you can say place and she's gonna run from her bed.
Right.
We're gonna have to transfer this now, okay?
Okay.
So, let's say you're gonna use the dog bed that you have in the car, and then maybe a dog bed in the home, and then like maybe a towel. Is you have to transfer the command to each one of those objects, okay? So a short 2 to 3 minute session with each of them should be enough.
Like I did with this.
Correct.
Okay.
Where you can start with a couple of taps to send her there first with some leash pressure. Once you feel like she's got the hint, start cueing in the word place with the tapping. And once you start to see that once you tap, she actually starts to go to that specific object, then it's safe to assume like she's got the association, okay? If you notice she has any issues, a short 2 to 3 minute session a day, 2 times a day of just, place break, within a couple of days you should get it, okay? The most important part of this, of course, is application. So, and you can work on these things simultaneous. Like you don't have to teach her place first for a few days and then try to do duration. You can do them both, okay? So, like you can do a short 2 to 3 minute, session of sending her to place and break and stuff, and then at the end you stop and you watch TV for 30 minutes, right? Like you can switch and do it at the same time, or you can do a 2 to 3 minute session, and then later in the day, maybe while you're eating dinner, you're like, okay, now in place, without multiple sends, it's just the one send, and then you leave her there for an hour or whatever it is, okay? So you can work on both those things at the same time. Once you feel like she's mastered the send for whatever objects that you're using, then you just use the command, okay? Let me think here. I think that's it. Questions?
No. Right now I got it on 20.
Mm-hmm.
Should I keep it at that level?
Yeah. So, because we were at 45 earlier, right? Which is
Right,
your walking, your outside number, and all that
Yes.
stuff, right? Is because this is such a chill command, right?
Okay.
That we don't need power, unless I start to see she's pushing the boundary.
Okay.
So like I had another dog that I worked with, for example, we taught the place command and they were struggling with it, like the dog wouldn't stay put. And I was like, well, what's your number? And the dog's number was like 45. But when they're outside, the dog's number is 80. Okay, it's a pretty big number. So I told them, how about we go in the middle? We'll go to 60 or whatever. And then that worked better, but he still kept trying to get off. And then I was like, just go to 80, see what happens. And then once they went to 80, they could send him and he wouldn't leave. Okay, so that was the number to make him like really respect the fact that like I'm not gonna move from this. Okay, so if you're working with Sweetie and you notice like, man, she just keeps trying to get off, that's when you start raising your number.
Gotcha.
Okay, so then you start to create the importance of place and the aspect of like you don't want to get off of here through raising that number.
Okay.
I'd go in jumps of 5, and then you'll find like, let's say you hit 40 and you're like be like, man, I sent her to place and she hasn't moved for 2 hours now. That's how you know that's the correct number. Okay, of course it might change when you're in a different environment than within the home. Like she could be great on 20 within the home, but then when you go to a restaurant, she needs 45. That's normal because there's a lot more things to contend with. Other questions?
Not at the moment.
So now we have heel, stay, come, and then the place command, correct?
Yes.
So the last things we need are sitting down. So we'll most likely, see how next week looks with the recall stuff. Otherwise, we can work on those 2 commands. Does she know down by chance, like with treats?
She knows sit, she does not know down.
Okay. Have you tried teaching her down?
I've tried, I haven't been very successful.
How were you approaching it?
I would try and force her down.
Okay.
And then I'd try treats.
Uh-huh.
And, she would just simply go on her belly.
Okay. So what I'm gonna have you do is revisit it this week.
Okay.
Using food. You can just either use your, the straight down.
Sit and then just
Yeah,
her down.
lower down. Yep.
Okay.
To the down. If she rolls on her belly, still feed her, praise her. We just need her to go to that downwards motion because it'll make layering remote over that much easier.
Okay.
Okay. So we're gonna revisit that 2 times a day, 2 to 3 minutes of just sit to down using food. I don't care if she rolls on her side, her belly, or whatever. You can praise her, rub her belly,
And no incorporating the remote.
no remote. Right. Because what we're doing here is we're just getting her familiar with laying down, so that when we layer that over it, it's easier. Because most dogs, when they feel the remote and you try to use pressure to put them down, they tend to get jumpy and flighty. So by creating kind of like an association or familiarity with it first, it makes that a lot easier. Okay. Once we get all that stuff in, then we're going to start working towards more long leash stuff. And essentially, so you'll have the 6 basic commands, and then we'll definitely keep working the recall, because that's the one command that has to be off leash reliable. The others are kind of like if you'd like, right? And it's really just practicing everything, and I'll show you how to practice it and how to start like making routines, so that when you go out with her to practice, you're building everything to the level of off leash, or as close to off leash as possible. Okay, and it just requires practice. Anything else? Good. So pretty simple. Nothing complicated here. So if you need anything, you let us know. Otherwise, we'll see you in a week.
Okay. And if the weather's not, if the weather's, nice, would we be able to do the park?
Yeah, just let Maria know.
Okay.
Just like, just message her as soon as, you're aware or whatever.
And we'll see if the weather's nice. I'll do it. If the forecast on Wednesday is good for Friday, I'll say, hey, let's do it.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Yep. And then something happens on Friday where it's like, oh crap, like weather was wrong.
We'll just go.
Yeah, it's not a problem.
Okay.
Because she just needs to adjust my schedule. Because after you, like my other clients are here.
Gotcha.
So unless they do the same thing, then it's just it's easier.
For you, yeah.
Yeah.